Curious where you see it kind of evolving or growing into, or you know where where you see this conversation going, or what you'd like to see happen with these kind of things.
Hmm. So my desire and intention is that we as humans increase our awareness towards these sacred sites, right? Towards the connection with nature. And by having these kind of conversations, that already happens. Because most of the people, they don't think about it. Or they, let's not say, sorry, I will take that back. I don't want to say most of the people. Some people don't know that, right? They don't take in consideration that this is a living place. This is the place where the ancestors are picking up the phone, right, to talk with us. Or um, and I think it's important to mention that, of course, you can go in a sacred site normally without asking for permission or, paying the respect and stuff like that. But let's put it this way, it's like the magic of the place doesn't fully open, or it shrinks down, or if you're disrespectful, there is a payment to be done, right? And it's important to have this in mind. And also, um, like in my case, as most of the things I learn them as I go, right? So it's not that if you didn't know about this until now, that's fine, right? You can just make a small ceremony tonight or for this new moon or eclipse, sun eclipse that is just um, right here around the corner, and just ask for forgiveness for paying your homage to the sacred sites that you visited without being aware of this. Because as I was mentioning in the beginning, and you asked me something, what's the payment, or what's the cost of going in these places without respecting them? And sometimes this respect, or being disrespectful, can be unconscious, right? Because people don't know about it, right? Like, for example, I remember years ago, I was in Ireland, and with a bunch of friends, we tried to visit the sacred site in the evening. It was late in the evening, and we had these other friends, and they were like, "But you know the protocol, right?" And I was just like, "Yeah, yeah, but I had something else, other parts of the protocol in mind, right?" And it was a beautiful experience in the sense that at the entrance of this sacred site, there was a white horse, right? And as we were approaching it, the horse started talking with us, right? So we were just like, okay, not tonight. Let's just return tomorrow in the morning, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just to discover later on that parts of the protocol is that the stone circles are not available to humans during nighttime, right? That's a place for other beings.
Hmm.
And when I found out about that, just asking for forgiveness, making a small ceremony for it, pay my respect, and so on and so forward, because it was not intentional,
Yeah.
right? So I think this is important to mention. Would you like to add something to that, Cathal?
Just absolutely spot on. Yeah, yeah. A really, really important point to make. And um, as I said, these places, they'll meet us at our level of awareness and our level of understanding, and um, we're not going to get it perfect. It's um, in any regards, in any respects. But there's um, and yeah, just within that, there's, that willingness to learn. And as you said, um, uh, being willing to apologize or to make correct, whether it is in a ceremony, ask for forgiveness, and that's, anytime I've had to do that, it's very, it's beautiful, and it's always given, in uh in that respects. And we then understand that, and we take that new lesson
Mm-hmm.
forward
Mm-hmm.
into every other encounter that we have, with these places, and we can share that with other people as well. Um, and so, as we are students the whole time, more often than not, we will end up in a place of guidance, as well, uh,
Mm-hmm.
in, in supporting other people in coming to meet these places. And
Mm-hmm.
as we continue our learning and education, and in engaging with these places, so too we become teachers and guides in the same respects, in the same regards, um, for people coming behind us. And it's, yeah, mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. What's been something you've learned recently that you kind of weren't aware of for a while? Has there been anything you've learned recently in that respect?
Hmm. That's a good question. Hmm. Hmm. Well, I actually had a very interesting experience lately in a sacred place, back home, which brought me back to the divine will in a way. Because as I see these sacred sites, for me, they represent our connection to the divinity, to the ancestors, to the ancient ones, to the other worlds, right? Because depending on the sacred site, they can be connected to a certain place or timeline and so on and so forth. And what came back to my attention was the divine will. Because, and that's a difference that we need to understand, or it will be delightful if we understand, as humans, that sometimes the divine will can be different than our will, right? We can push our will or we can try to do certain things, but if it's not aligned to the place, to the location, to the time frame, um, it won't happen. It won't happen, right? And like, I'm still amazed and surprised how these sacred places um, will bring out what they will bring out to prevent something from happening that is not meant to happen, if it makes sense. Like, and I witnessed in this experience, um, like a storm coming just exactly when the ceremony was about to start it, or finding another place and then someone coming just to camp there. It was like the energy of the place will push it if it's not aligned. And I guess it's a hard lesson. In a way, it's a humbling lesson that will bring you back to the listening, back to connecting to the place. Even if before that you came with the intention to do a certain ceremony in a certain place, if it's not allowed, I wanted to say aligned, but if it's not allowed by by the ancestors or the keepers of the place, or if it's not aligned to the bigger picture, to the divine, it won't happen. And for this, I'm deeply grateful to all the ancient Celtic way of healing ceremonies that I took part in, where we met as well, inside the circle, where if you come down inside of yourself into that place of stillness, the land talks to you, nature talks to you, right? And I think you have a very beautiful and very alive tradition in Ireland that requires you to go into that place of deep connection with nature when the earth, the elements, and nature itself, the ancestors are just talking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've often had this image of um Ireland being kind of layered, like an onion almost, and there's just different levels of density, um, and levels of engagement. You can kind of see Ireland from and engage with Ireland and the land from, and as you move through the layers, um, and become closer and closer to the land and more sensitive to it. By walking, hiking, going barefoot, swimming in the lakes and the seas and the rivers, and um, visiting these sacred sites. Uh, that magic begins to open up, um, within and without. It's a two-way thing because we are nature. At the end of the day, we're not separate from it, and um, yeah, it's a really really precious thing to 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 know and be in relationship with and to experience. Yeah, some of the, as you said, some of the experiences we've shared in circle and workshops have been, you know, been so hard to put into words. Um, and and for me, that's my gauge as to um when magic is happening and when you're like in the mystery is words fail you. It's really hard to condense into words, and that's, again, it kind of returns back to that silence piece of yeah, just that inner listening, inner communication, that happens. Mhm. Yeah, and with respects to your own culture, and you said that there's a lot of sacred sites in Romania and and the Balkans. Um, what's it been like for you in terms of engaging with the land there and returning home and seeing the differences in the cultures and that?
Mhm. That's a really beautiful question because, like, for me, it's a difference in the way that nature is very alive in Ireland through these sacred sites where it's just so vibrant and so pulsating with energy, right? But it's also more powerful and much more protected in a way, if it makes sense, right? As for in Romania, like nature is super wild and powerful there too. But I think as you're having this long tradition of, how was it, 100 druids that keep the islands alive. I think that's what we are missing, what we were missing inland, right? Because we had like similar experiences. We have our ancestors, the Dacians, which were part of the Thracian nations, known to be the wisest of all. And even, I don't remember who recalled it, but I think it was one of the Roman emperors. He was, or a scholar, was telling the Romans that you don't go there to give them laws, but you go there to learn from them, right? From the Dacians. And it's quite interesting because our ancestors, they didn't left anything written, as well as your ancestors too. So there are lots of similarities. And it's known that the Celts and the Dacians, they had an alliance, an alliance, during the times, but somewhere it just the old tradition. Hmm, it I wouldn't say it fade away because it's quite alive, but not as available or as potent or visible as it is in Ireland, if it makes sense. On the other hand, maybe that this is not universal true to all the sacred sites. Like, for example, our ancestors had a spiritual capital and a military one, right? And the spiritual capital, in my own experience, I avoided going there until they called for me. Because I could hear all these stories from other people, like the car broke on the way or they had all kinds of troubles. And I was just like, ah, that's cool, but I would just wait for that event, right? And until I was put face to face, like all the signs were just like, go here and go here. And then I was just like, for sure, like, am I welcome? Because, I asked them for permission and I was just like, inside of me, I was just like, if I have the smallest resistance, I'm just going to come back. I'm going to return. I'm not going forward, right? That's how powerful it is. And the energies there are really alive, but not as alive in our collective consciousness as they are in Ireland. And I think that's a very, very precious and special thing that you have going on there.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned you the spiritual center and the military political center because we had the same here as well.
I
Uh,
didn't hear that.
yeah, so the spiritual center of Ireland is traditionally the Hill of Ishnok in
Okay.
Westmeath, and the political military was the Hill of Tara in Meath.
Okay.
It's two different um, centers. There, I could go into my own kind of understanding of their relationship between each other um, right now, but it's just interesting to see the similarities between the two cultures in having them separate and separated. Yeah, that's cool. And what was that like for you in when you eventually got there? What was that experience like for you?
Well, it was quite interesting. It was shocking in the way that a few years back, so when this was happening, this sacred site, which is called Sarmisegetusa Regia, used to be very, very guarded. Like they had, it's a private security company still to the place today, and everything is under surveillance, and you cannot sit on the ground. They basically interdicted all kinds of ceremony in the place a while back. And parts can be understandable because there were lots of people doing all kinds of their understanding of ceremonies in that place, right? But on the other hand, it's creating like a layer of separation between the people and the land, because you're not allowed to sit on the ground. Even now, like I was there recently, and someone was just sitting on the ground, and a guard came. Whatsoever, the security is not so intense as it used to be. Like there were, I don't know, like 4 or 5 guardians. Like it's a big site, right? But still, like you couldn't move a muscle. Like you couldn't meditate. You couldn't bow to the land. You couldn't do anything, right? Um, the only thing that you could do, so they have benches now, and you can sit on the bench and just contemplate there, but you're further away from the place. It's a space between the place and the stones, or the altar and stuff like that. And of course you can go walking, right? No one stops you to walk barefooted, as you were mentioning in the beginning, and just connect to the land, to the energies, and just be there. So, but the energies it was really beautiful. It's like, it's a different world that hugs and embraces you when you come into these sacred places.
Mm. Yeah, wow. Wow. There's there's quite a lot in that in terms of how, you know, protected and guarded and, surveilled it is, and people are while there. And um yeah, also as you mentioned, as how beautiful and clean the energy still is. Um and yeah, I love how, you said you waited until you really got the call to make sure it was true and aligned. Because as you said, if you kind of it can happen if you choose to go to these places of your own will. The car might break down, or you might get a puncture, or something will interfere with it because it's not um, meant to be the appropriate time. Um, but yeah, it's sad to hear um, how kind of there's private security around it, and kind of limited in engagement with the place. It, yeah, it kind of evokes a sense of um, being watched, not in a good way, you know, and being surveilled, not in a good way. That kind of almost disturb that sense of inner peace, that we're hopefully engaging with these places. And I can understand how, because of that, there's a ripple effect of the disconnect between people and the consciousness of the people and the place, and the sacred center. So um, yeah, hopefully that kind of shifts and changes for the better in time, um, and it kind of loosens up a bit. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, the security is not so strong now as it used to be back then, but it's still there. And I just want to add, I was mentioning that in the beginning, like I was like, if you welcome me, I'm coming. If not, like I heard so many stories of people being, turned around, or having all kinds of experiences because they push their will against the bigger will, right? The will of the divine, the will of the ancestors. I was just like, I'm not going to do that. And I just wanted to add, because on the theme of, okay, what's the cost? What's the cost of it
mm,
if you go into the sacred sites without following a protocol, or at least being respectful in the place? And maybe you can confirm that if that's true, or add to it. But as far as I know, you have that in place in Ireland. where the ancient ones, in the old Celtic tradition, you are not allowed to um, interrupt a ceremony, right? You could not interrupt the druid while he was in stone circle and, gathering information from the other world, but for this world, right? Because then, as far as I remember, it was a death penalty, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to share more about that?
Yeah, I remember our teacher and friend sharing this information as well in terms of it was, these ceremonies were often a matter of life and death for the tribe
Mhm.
in terms of, whether it was like tracking animals for the hunt or foreshadowing weather, and all these kind of divining weather and all these kind of things, and or even just celebrating certain festivals and feasts. But yeah, we were talking about negative consequences way back when. It was often, the sacrifice was the life, of the person that interfered or disturbed or, kind of broke protocol. So it's quite a serious um kind of issue um in history. And of course that's changed, and it's evolved as humans have evolved and changed, and time has moved on. But it does lay down a little seed of healthy fear that I think is important to have as well, of the power of these places and the importance of engaging with them appropriately and with respect and reverence, because if that trespass, if there's the disrespect is so strong, that it can the negative consequences can be serious, and um, that's why, in terms of leaving offerings and leaving thanks and you just saying thanks within your own heart, but leaving offerings, if that's not, if that exchange has been reciprocated, something then might be taken away um, within your own life. You might lose your keys when you really need them, or just some things will start happening that are just you know disruptive to your life because of the disruption that was kind of caused in that. So that knowledge and information, when I heard that, it certainly planted a healthy sense of fear and respect when engaging with these places. And there's yeah, I come back to that anytime I go up to these places and know it's just back, it's there, in the background, and in a healthy way, and it's kind of just a little reminder, a little check in to um really see, okay, like how am I within and how am I engaging, and proper exchange, permission, um asking, giving thanks, and so on and so forth. So
Mhm.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up, uh Andrea. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you for sharing more about it.
yeah, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So yeah, hopefully, I guess, the purpose of the intention of this conversation was to just bring more
Mhm.
kind of illumination around the topic and conversation. And yeah, it feels like we're kind of coming to a nice kind of close and finish in it. Is there anything you'd like to finish on or leave as a
Mm,
imparting?
Maybe, just like a small reminder of the steps that we we explore, like
Yeah.
approaching the sacred site with respect, asking for permission, maybe introducing yourself when before you go there or when you go there. Make clear your intentions that you come with an open heart. Maybe even purify your intention, because that can create that. Let's put it this way: the intention can change the experience that you have in the sacred site, right? I don't know, walk with humbleness in a sacred site and embrace stillness, just go within, allow all the unnecessary conversation to just stop. And you were mentioning Jer earlier, and it's something that I learned from Kim and from David White as well. Like stop that conversation, even the one that you have with yourself when you go there, because then you're going to be open to receive, right? Then you are going to be aware of what the place is sharing with you, what's communicating with you. And yeah, bring an offering or, just allow the energy to be balanced. Would you like to add something? Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's a beautiful summation. Yeah, yeah, really nice. And I think if people can kind of take those um, small pieces of etiquette and and play with them, go to these places and put them into practice and see what happens. And again, always coming back to that place of being curious and learning and having that sense of play, within ourselves, within our hearts. I think that purity and innocence within that energy it's a beautiful protective field, for anybody engaging with these places. Kind of that place, playful innocence and curiosity to learn and grow. I think that in itself is such a strong um, protection. So yeah, uh, I think that's a beautiful place to finish, um, and it was a really fun conversation. Yeah, yeah. I wish you all the best in Delphi in your visit there, and hope that's insightful and illuminating at this time for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Cathal. Thank you so much for this beautiful and enriching conversation. And it was a pleasure, and I'm sure, and I hope, and it's my intention that this will inspire other people to approach sacred sites differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andre. See you again. Talk soon.
See you.